Hello everyone, and welcome to the channel. Today, I will be going over a detailed guide on how to bear in Dragonflight Mythic Plus. This is something that I have put together after many hours of testing throughout the beta period and is updated information for Dragonflight release. In this guide, I will be going over how to do good damage and mitigation for your group, while also calling out the strengths and weaknesses of the class. For more advanced bear players, I will also review on how to best optimize your toolkit when doing higher keys. Timestamps for each section can be found in the video description below. Let's get to it. In order to optimize your damage as a Guardian Druid, you will need to understand the nuance of your spec and class tree. For the sake of consistency, I recommend that you run the following specs for Mythic Plus content. You can feel free to pause the video for a better look, and I've included the build link in the description below. To maximize your damage as a bear, you will need to make good use of your primary damage increase cooldowns, Incarnation and Rage of the Sleeper. Incarnation is on a 3-minute cooldown, but when you spec into Ursoc's Guidance, you will be able to get that down to about 2-minute cooldown. You can do this by dumping Rage. With Ursoc's Guidance, every 20 Rage spent will reduce Incarnation's cooldown by 1 second. The primary way you will dump Rage will be through Iron Fur, which costs 40 Rage and subtracts 2 seconds from Incarnation's cooldown every time you use it. Alternatively, if you're in no danger of dying, you can use Maul, which also costs 40 Rage, but disrupts your rotation since it's on the global cooldown, whereas Iron Fur is not. When you cast Incarnation, you should also stack it with Rage of the Sleeper. This will give you a 10-second buff, which will prevent 25% of all damage you take, increase your damage output by 15%, and also grant you 25% leech for the duration. Additionally, it will reflect a small amount of nature damage back to attackers. During your Incarnation and Rage of the Sleeper windows, you should be thrashing while simultaneously dumping Rage with Iron Fur during AoE situations. You should also be consuming your Gore procs when you have 3 targets or less by weaving in Mangle as needed. For situations that have 4 or more targets, you can stick to thrashing and dumping Rage with Iron Fur. In both scenarios, you will only want to use Maul when you proc Tooth and Claw. Tooth and Claw empowers your Maul to do 40% more damage with 0 rage cost. The value of this increases the fewer targets you are actively tanking, so you will need to weigh the cost of Maul weaving against your ability to generate and dump Rage. During the 10-second window where Rage of the Sleeper is up, Tooth and Claw will see the highest value since it will be dealing an additional 40% while empowered, plus an additional 15% from Rage of the Sleeper. Once you have obtained your 2-piece set bonus, things change a bit. Gore procs become much more impactful on your rotation with your 2-piece set bonus. Without the bonus, and outside of Incarnation, Mangle will only deal single target damage. With your 2-piece set bonus in place, Mangle will damage all targets while also providing a 5% damage reduction from those targets. You will be thrashing to 3 stacks and pressing Mangle for every Gore proc, as Mangle will also now deal 30% more damage while hitting all nearby targets. If you happen to be fighting more than 5 targets at a time, it will do reduced damage beyond 5 targets. Outside of your Incarnation and Rage of the Sleeper windows, you will be keeping Moonfire up on as many targets as you can. You will want to consume Galactic Guardian for 300% direct damage on Moonfire increase whenever available. It is also worth noting that you're not in danger of overriding an empowered Moonfire, since the damage increase comes from the direct damage and not the damage over time effect. You will want to maintain Moonfires while also maintaining 3 stacks of trash and consuming Tooth and Claw procs with Maul and Gore procs with Mangle. Rage of the Sleeper should be pressed on cooldown as long as the enemies you are fighting have enough health to justify the use as either a defensive or offensive cooldown. You will be doing this to keep Rage of the Sleeper synced as much as possible with Incarnation. As long as you are properly dumping Rage while maximizing your Rage generation, Rage of the Sleeper and Incarnation will pair together every 2 minutes for your best burst window, while you can use Rage of the Sleeper at the minute mark in between while focusing on Maul, Mangle, and Moonfire when paired with the respective damage enhancing procs. One of the best things about playing a Guardian Druid is the better you are at doing damage, the better survivability you will have. The primary reason for this is because surviving comes down to generating Rage consistently. By generating more Rage, you will have Rage that can then be spent based on whatever the scenario calls for. Pretty obvious, huh? Additionally, the abilities that do solid damage also provide some of the best damage reduction, and it's done passively. Your primary damage reduction kit is made up of your rotational abilities and your cooldowns. Your primary rage generator as a bear is now Mangle via Gore procs. You can proc Gore from using Thrash, Swipe, Moonfire, or Maul, as they all have a 15% chance to reset the cooldown of Mangle and empower it to generate an additional 4 rage. Additionally, Blood Frenzy is a talent that will make Thrash generate an additional 2 rage every time Thrash deals damage. And lastly, Galactic Guardian procs make Moonfire generate an additional 8 rage. In order to proc Galactic Guardian, you just need to do damage to a target using literally any ability, and that damage done gives you a 5% chance to proc Galactic Guardian. So between Mangle, Moonfire, and Thrash, you will be generating quite a bit of rage while also selecting all 3 Berserk talents on the tree to generate a massive amount of rage every incarnation window. That rage will be used on either Iron Fur or Frenzied Regeneration. Guardian Druid has percent-based healing from Frenzied Regeneration, which will heal you for 32% of your entire health pool over approximately 3 seconds. You will likely be running with 2 stacks of Frenzied Regeneration, which carries a base cost of 10 rage to cast. You will always want to avoid overlapping Frenzied Regeneration casts. If you were to cast a Frenzied Regeneration and then 1 second later cast it again, you would only receive 4 seconds of healing and approximately 42% of your base health pool, as opposed to 64% of the base health pool that you would have received from not overlapping the casts. In the event you need more healing in order to live, you have the ability to cast Renewal while in bear form, which heals you instantly for 30% of your base health on a 90-second cooldown. You will need to be mindful of this to help you deal with magic damage better outside of cooldown windows. Iron Fur will be the primary rage spender for a Guardian Druid. In the past, you would have wanted to pool rage to make sure that you had the ability to have 2 to 3 stacks of Iron Fur up to help mitigate physical damage and auto attacks. Given the Spec Tree overhaul and buff to the talent after the Wildfire, this is no longer the case. Guardian Druid plays similarly to Protection Warrior now, in that you will never want to cap on rage, and you will want to generate and spend rage at a faster rate. Your primary motivation for this comes from the passive healing bonus of After the Wildfire. With this talent selected, every 200 rage that you spend will cause a burst of healing to your 5 closest friendly targets within 12 yards. You can even expand the rage to 14 yards by following the Balance Tree path instead of the Restoration path in the class talent tree. The healing effect can also crit, and essentially turns a Guardian Druid into an off healer as long as targets stand in range. If less than 5 targets are in range, then you will be passively healing yourself for sizable burst amounts every 200 rage spent, which substantially helps you with self-sustain, which is something that Guardian Druid has historically struggled with. Other core abilities and talents that provide damage reduction are as follows. Moonfire, when paired with Scintillating Moonlight and Elun's Favored, will make it so that while active on a target, Moonfire will reduce damage taken from that target by 10%, in addition to turning 30% of total arcane damage done into self-healing. Ursine Adept is a talent that allows for 10% damage reduction while in bear form. Wellhoned Instincts is a talent in the class tree that will passively cast Frenzied Regeneration free of charge when you fall below 40% health. Natural Recovery, also found in the class tree, increases healing done to you by either 2 or 4% depending on how many points you spend in the talent. Nurturing Instinct, also found in the class tree, increases healing done to you by 2, 4, or 6% depending on how many points you have invested into the talent. Damage reduction cooldowns for Guardian Druid are critical to avoiding health spikes and should be used relatively freely. There's generally not a good reason to sit on any of these cooldowns unless you know they are needed for a given situation. Incarnation increases your health pool by 30%, in addition to causing Mangle to hit 3 targets for its duration. This increases both the rage generation from Mangle, as well as the healing amount from Frenzied Regeneration and Renewal. With a bigger health pool comes larger healing done, which is why having percent-based healing for Guardians is such a big deal. Rage of the Sleeper reduces all damage taken by 25%, while also granting you 25% leech for 10 seconds on a 1-minute cooldown. This is a strong and reliable damage reduction that will also provide some self-healing. Survival Instincts is your primary solution to tank busters and high damage windows. It provides 50% damage reduction for a 6-second window. You can either run with 1 or 2 charges of Survival Instincts. This will come down to content and difficulty level, but I would recommend running with 2 charges since this is your best and most reliable damage reduction cooldown. It also carries a long 2.5 minute cooldown, which means 2 charges will really help to smooth out your health pool. Bark Skin provides a flat 20% damage reduction window for 12 seconds with a base 1 minute cooldown. Speccing into Survival of the Fittest will also reduce the cooldown of Bark Skin and Survival Instincts by 30%. Bark Skin becomes a 42-second cooldown, and Survival Instincts becomes a 2.1 minute cooldown. Additionally, spending a point in Matted Fur in the class talent tree will also grant you a small Absorb Shield, which will add up over the course of a dungeon or an encounter, given how frequently Bark Skin is available. Any tank should know where they thrive so that they can lean into those strengths. Throughout Shadowlands, Guardian became known as a 3-minute tank that would be unkillable and put out large amounts of damage every 3 minutes. However, outside of those 3 minutes, they had a hard time holding threat, generating enough rage to mitigate, and overall did not bring enough damage when compared to other tanks. Entering the first season of Dragonflight, there is a drastic difference. Bears now provide incredible sustainability through Frenzied Regeneration, Moonfire, Circle of Life and Death, Renewal, and After the Wildfire. The ability to contribute to the survivability of the group, in addition to yourself with After the Wildfire, is currently one of the biggest draws to playing a Guardian Druid. Additionally, you will still be able to pull off some impressive pulls in conjunction with Incarnation, Rage of the Sleeper, and After the Wildfire every 2 minutes or so. Guardian Druids are not without their flaws. Its current state is the best that it's been in a while, but it still does struggle against magic damage, which Dragonflight seems to have an abundance of. This does mean that an inexperienced bear might struggle initially around balancing and spending rage while weaving in the offensive abilities to survive. Bear has historically turned to swipe as the filler in the rotation, but that is less true now due to the proc system behind Gore, Galactic Guardian, and Tooth and Claw. With Mangle, Moonfire, and Maul all being on the global cooldown, you can global cooldown lock yourself out of Frenzied Regeneration or Renewal when it is most needed. Additionally, double tapping a Frenzied Regeneration in a state of panic or desperation would impact your self-sustain quite a bit. Given Iron Fur only impacts physical damage, you will need to be smart about using Bark Skin, Survival Instincts, and Rage of the Sleeper, which are your primary damage reduction sources. If you find yourself spiking or getting chunked for big damage in dungeons, you may need to look at how you're spending rage and try to be more proactive with Frenzied Regeneration, since it's a heal over time and not a direct heal. You will also need to take a look at your rage regeneration and make sure that you're not capping it and therefore minimizing potential healing that you could be realizing from After the Wildfire. Now that you have a good foundational understanding behind doing damage, mitigating damage, and what the Guardian Druid kit brings to the table, it's time to optimize for better performance. Some of this you may want to explore weak aura packages to help you track or create your own. Bear is known as one of the easier tanks to play, but it has quite a few spell and ability interactions that can hinder performance substantially when played poorly. For the sake of relevance, I will assume that if you are trying to optimize, you have already obtained your 4-piece set bonus for Season 1. Obtaining the set bonus is important because it will impact your priority for your core rotation. Bear is now a proc-based tank for both damage done and damage mitigated. It is also a proactive mitigation tank, in that you will benefit greatly from proactive mitigation of damage versus reacting to damage done. If this is done correctly, you will rely less on your oh shit kit, such as Renewal, Well-Honed Instincts, and Survival Instincts, and more on your core rotational damage abilities. The priority for Bear is relatively simple. Without Incarnation, you will be stacking Iron Fur in conjunction with maintaining the priority list below. Thrash to 3 stacks, Mangle with Gore, Maul with Tooth and Claw, Moonfire with Galactic Guardian, Thrash, and then swipe when you're not able to thrash, and then Mangle if you're down to less than 3 targets. With Incarnation, you will be stacking Iron Fur in conjunction with maintaining the priority list below. For 3 targets or less, you will be thrashing to 3 stacks, you will Mangle with Gore, you will Maul with Tooth and Claw, you will Mangle without Gore, you will Moonfire with Galactic Guardian, you will thrash, and then you will swipe. In 4 or more target situations, you will be thrashing to 3 stacks, you will be mangling with every Gore proc, you will be thrashing, and then you will use Maul when the target count gets low enough in conjunction with Tooth and Claw, but you will not be doing it as long as 4 or more targets are alive. You will drop Moonfire from the rotation on higher target counts, since every incarnation should be paired with Rage of the Sleeper, and Moonfiring is target capped and Thrash is not. Moonfires will also be passively rolling from Galactic Guardian, so you will not need to hardcast. Maul also will take up a global cooldown, so against higher target counts the priority will be dropped until the target count is reduced. And even then, you will only be using Maul if you could afford the global and do not need the Rage from Thrash when paired with Blood Frenzy in order to maintain Iron Fur and proc after the Wildfire. In general, Maul should drop entirely from the rotation during Incarnation, but Maul damage is very good, and if you can Maul a priority target with Tooth and Claw proc, it will also provide a 15% damage reduction from that target, while also providing extra priority damage for your group. Other nuances to be aware of come down to the interaction of your talents from the spec and class trees. While the Druid class tree is not the strongest for Bear, there are certain talents that you will want to prioritize that are highly synergistic. Moonfire will be the bulk of your damaging keys, so you will want to do what you can to maximize the output of Moonfire while maintaining the Moonfire dot on as many targets as possible. For this reason, we take Scintillating Moonlight for 10% damage reduction from targets who are affected by Moonfire, and we increase our efficiency by picking up Twin Moonfire, which also increases Moonfire damage by 10%. We also will be pathing through Fury of Nature, which provides 20% increased arcane damage while you're in bear form, which Moonfire just so happens to be. From there, we pick up Balloon's Favored, buffing arcane damage again by 10%, but also healing ourselves passively for 30% of all the arcane damage that we're doing. Circle of Life and Death is essential for bears because it increases the potency of our damage over time effects by dealing damage 25% faster, affecting both our Moonfire and Thrash. Additionally, any healing over time effects occur 50% faster, which affects our Frenzied Regeneration. We can further empower our damage and healing by picking up a few crucial talents in the class tree. Your first priority will be Nurturing Instinct. This is a 3-point node that will increase all magic damage and healing by 2% for each point spent. You should sink all 3 points for a total increase of 6%. If you follow the restoration path in the class tree, you will want to put 2 points into Natural Recovery, which will increase your healing done and healing taken by 2% for each point, with a total increase of 4%. Alternatively, if you would rather follow the balance path, you will want to grab Astral Influence, which is a 2-point node that increases the range of all of your abilities by 1 yard per point. This will give you an additional range for both damage output as well as the passive healing effect of After the Wildfire. From here, there are some choices that you'll need to make, which should be based on the level of difficulty of the content that you're doing. The third tier of talents in the class tree does not have any must-have capstone talents. Protector of the Pack forces you out of bear form, making it unusable. Heart of the Wild has a 5-minute cooldown, but loses its luster a bit without Convoke the Spirits. However, it's still useful when used properly, but also not mandatory. Lastly, Nature's Vigil will passively heal a party member for 20% of all single target damage that occurs over a 30-second window. This can be useful if you're able to prioritize Moonfire, Maul, and keep Thrash stacked, since the bleed damage counts as single target. It can also be synced with every third Rage of the Sleeper window, which will increase the damage output for the first 10 seconds of Nature's Vigil. Both Heart of the Wild as well as Nature's Vigil are situational, and taking either capstone will require you to remove a point from either Wild Charge, Well-Honed Instincts, or both. Pathing in favor of Nature's Vigil will also provide you with Innervate, but using it will shift you out of bear form, so it will lose its value in critical moments when you're unable to shift out of bear. Heart of the Wild does empower your Moonfire and all spell damage by 30%, so it provides the most synergy of all the capstones and requires you to give up Wild Charge or 1 point of Well-Honed Instincts, but not both. Generally speaking, if you're pathing via the balance kit, you will take Heart of the Wild with your final point. If you path via the restoration tree, you will gain Remove Corruption, but reaching a class capstone talent will require some give and take. Lastly, I want to touch on self-healing and sustain as a Guardian Druid. The most obvious and general rule is to never overlap or overwrite Frenzied Regeneration casts. While this has been the standard for some time now, it's still a mistake that rookie bears make often out of moments of panic or desperation. Additionally, Frenzied Regeneration should not be cast while at or near full health. Given Guardian Druid self-healing is percentage-based and occurs over roughly 3 seconds, it should only be cast when missing 30% or more of your health. This needs to be balanced with the fact that we should never sit on 2 stacks of Frenzied Regeneration for too long given its potency. Additionally, Well-Honed Instincts will provide you with a free Frenzied Regeneration cast when your health dips below 40% and has an internal cooldown of either 90 seconds or 2 minutes depending on your talent point investment. Should you proc Well-Honed Instincts, you will want to avoid overlapping or overwriting, just the same as if you had to hardcast it. So you might be asking, if Frenzy Regeneration is cast for free at 40% health, and you shouldn't cast it when you're above 70% health, when should you cast it? If you're proactively casting the first charge, it can safely be spent between 40 and 70% health. If the first charge has already been spent, then you should sit on the second charge until you dip below 40% health and have Well-Honed Instincts on cooldown. Sometimes this still is not going to be enough in order for you to get healthy, so you should use Renewal for an instant 30% heal and then follow that up with your second charge of Frenzied Regeneration to allow your healer to catch up. If you do this all while following your priority rotation, investing your Rage in Ironfur, and cycling between Barkskin and Survival Instincts as needed, then you're doing everything you can to stay alive and healthy for your group. Hopefully this helps both fledgling and experienced bears out there throughout Dragonflight. Keep in mind that tuning will be an ongoing process and that your talent pathing may change throughout the expansion. This guide should maintain relevance through at least Season 1 of Dragonflight. If you have any questions or feedback, please drop them in the comments section below. Enjoy Dragonflight, everyone.